So we got that quest system coming in, starting tomorrow, and right now it's confirmed that we're gonna have Mew, but we might have Celebi and Jirachi down the line. The door to the Mythics is opened. It looks like they're gonna be quest rewards, they, as in Mew initially, and we'll probably get Celebi and Jirachi down the line. So Mew's gonna be this quest reward, most likely. When we get it, what are we gonna do with it? You're gonna power it up, or are you gonna use it to attack? Is that a good idea? Well, let's get into the basics, alright? So we got Mew here, and its stats, its attack 210, defense 210, stamina 200. Yeah, in the main games, all of its stats are well-rounded, the same. You see that with the kind of pixie, fairy, right, shaped mythic Pokemon. They all got these well-rounded stats. What's unique about Mew, though, is that it has one fast attack in the current Game Master, and that's Pound, but it has 8 different charge moves. It's got Blizzard, Earthquake, Psychic, Focus Blast, Thunder, Fire Blast, Hyper Beam, and Solar Beam. And it's one of those legendary Pokemon that haven't been released yet, that Niantic has removed some of the moves from the Game Master. It previously had Hurricane and Dragon Pulse. And the reason why it's got this varied move set, it's kind of like a call out to Mew in the main series games, where it had the ability to learn every single TM. So if you had a TM or an HM in the main series games, they were specific to a specific move. It wasn't some random roll of the dice. You knew what you were getting. Well, Mew could get any of those. So it's got all these different moves. Now you might be thinking like, dang, Mew has like 200 stats all around. 210 attack isn't super impressive, but 200 bulk, that's pretty cool. Is this going to be some great, awesome, I can beat everything with just one Mew kind of attacker? Well, not exactly. Pound is a pretty poor attacking move. Normal is a pretty poor attacking type. And off a 210 unstabbed, no chance of getting super effective hits in, that's pretty bad. In Pokemon Go, a lot of the damage you deal comes from your fast moves, and if it's not really coming from there, well, now you have to rely on the charge moves, which runs into another problem with Mew. All these charge moves are single bars. It's going to take a while for Mew to get there, and it's hitting them with all these pounds, getting all that pound damage, and you finally get to the charge move, and then you run into another problem, which is all these aren't all that good. Like, Blizzard's not too bad. Focus Blast is alright, but Thunder, Hyper Beam, Psychic, Earthquake, even Solar Beam, if it doesn't have like good stats to back it up, like all these attacks aren't exactly impressive on such a, you know, amorphous kind of Pokemon. One thing that I think would be a cool improvement to Mew, or improvement if you will, is if they gave Mew Transform. Mew can learn Transform at level 10 in the main series games. There's this whole kind of crackpot, I wouldn't say crackpot theory, it's a pretty reasonable theory, that Ditto is like failed Mew experiments, like Mew clones that failed, though they became Ditto, and Ditto only knows Transform, and that's why it's pink and has the same weight, all that kind of stuff. You can check out game theory or something if you want more details on that theory. But Mew can learn Transform, and right now you're thinking Transform, well that's Ditto, and Ditto's a pretty bad Pokemon. Well, the way Transform works in Pokemon Go is it copies the base stats of the defending Pokemon, so the Pokemon that you're up against. So you get their base attack and their base defense, but you keep your base HP. So when I say base, it doesn't copy the stats directly, it's based off of your level and your IV spread. It just has that Pokemon's like base kind of potential. So if you're level 40 Pokemon and they're level 40 Pokemon and you have the same IVs, then you'll have the same attack and the same defense as they would. But if they're like a level 35 Pokemon and you're level 40 Pokemon, well then you'll have the level 40 iteration of that Pokemon's attack and defense. For the HP, you keep your HP. And Ditto only has 96 HP, if I remember correctly. And because of that, when it transforms into the Pokemon, more often than not, it's going to be a weaker iteration of that Pokemon. So if you're trying to be Sly and transform into your opponent's Dragonite, and then you're like, now I got a Dragonite to fight this gym with, and it only cost me a Ditto, Well, that Ditto Dragonite is going to be weaker more often than your own actual Dragonite that you're bringing in. What's cool about Mew is Mew has that 200 stamina, and you can see right here that that is rank 16 out of all Pokemon that are currently released in the game. So more often than not, Mew will transform into a stronger iteration of that Pokemon. So that could work pretty well for some circumstantial gymming. Let's look at the Pokemon list here for a moment. So yeah, you can see here Alakazam, right? Really strong Pokemon, considered to be a glass cannon. If you look at Alakazam's stats compared to Mewtwo, its defense stat is a little bit higher, but it's got way lower HP. It's only got 110 HP. Mewtwo has 193. Well, if a Mew were to have transform, right now in the Game Master it doesn't, but if Mew got transform, and it transformed into like a Shadow Ball Alakazam, then that Mew transformed Alakazam would arguably be as strong, if not stronger, than a full-fledged Mewtwo. So I think that's pretty neat. If you scroll down, you see Gengar here, one of the best gym cleaners in the game. If Mew were to transform into that, it just remedies that HP problem right there, and you still keep all those rad stats. Translating this into raid viability, which is what really matters in the current metagame, you could use Mew to transform into Pokemon that are like self-counters. So for example, Mew could transform into like a Confusion or a Psycho Cut Shadow Ball Mewtwo and fight Mewtwo that way. Since the base HP isn't too different, it would end up being as good as if you just brought another Mewtwo, but a lot of people aren't rolling deep in Mewtwo's, you know what I'm saying? So if you have a Mew, then that's effectively another Mewtwo that you could use in the fight if Mew got transformed. Looking at Rayquaza can be a good self-counter as well. Lower HP than what the Mew has, and it's once again just one Pokemon, able to transform and do two things, but contingent on the moveset that you're up against, since it copies the moveset. Shadow Ball Alakazam, if that becomes a raid boss again. And you got, Solar Beam Groudon, Thunder Kyogre, the Laddie twins, they got dragon type attacks. Once again, you have more HP than that 160 base. And yeah, we got Gengar raids right now, and Gengar as a self counter with more HP, that sounds like a pretty good idea to me. We can actually check that out. I was kind of playing around with this earlier on Go Battle Sim. Right now, Go Battle Sim isn't configured to use transform properly, so I just use the add edit species to make a Mew transformed Pokemon. So let's see, we got Mew Gengar, right? So this is a Mew that has transformed into a Gengar. We're gonna go up against a Gengar. I'll make sure I got this right. Raid, it's not immortal. We're not dodging, so that doesn't matter. Yeah, let's get 2,000 sims. Pretty good rule of thumb. Alright, so we see we got a DPS of 26.14 and a TDO of 93.89. It looks like about 26% of the time you can do a solo with 6 Mews transformed into Gengar, so that's pretty interesting. Let's see how the actual Gengar compares. So yeah, you can see that it's performing much worse. And the main reason being is because Gengar is often going to be fainting, very, very soon in the fight, because Shadow Ball basically rubs out Gengar because it's got such low HP. Where the Mew transformed Gengar has enough HP to take that hit, use that damage, turn it into its own Shadow Ball, and then launch it right back at it. So pretty good indication for having transform on Mew, making it a nice, niche, meta-viable Pokemon. At least it's more neat than having 8 different charge moves that all suck, But yeah, let's take a look at the Celebi now. So yeah, here's Celebi. It is a grass psychic type Pokemon, even though it's called the Onion Fairy. They didn't retcon it and make it into a grass fairy type, which I'm kind of disappointed in. And like I said before, the pixie fairy kind of body shaped mythical Pokemon, they all share that same stat spread, so 210, 210, 200. So this is a grass Pokemon, so it's a grass mythical legendary Pokemon. You might be thinking like, man, this is grass time to shine, they're kind of overshadowed by like Raikou and Kyogre and stuff like that based on each role. Well, now we finally have, a grass type in the wings to make grass types look cool. Well, not exactly. It knows Confusion, Charge Beam, Hyper Beam, Psychic, and Dazzling Gleam in the current Game Master. So no grass attacks there, which is pretty disappointing. If Celebi's Game Master were to change and it were to get Grass Knot, which is a 2-bar charge move, a little bit weaker than Frenzy Plant, but it's still better than Solar Beam. A very strong grass move. If you've watched any of my grass type content, you would know this. Given the stat spread, it's got a lower attack than Executor and Venusaur, if I recall correctly, but it's got much better bulk. And with that multi-bar charge move, with it being stronger than Solar Beam, I could see Celebi being a high TDO, kind of lower DPS, like grass type attacker if it were to get a grass type charge move. But in the current Game Master, it does not have that. So if and when we get Celebi, if this Game Master remains unchanged, it'll have the grass defensive typing, but that's about it. And yet, if mythical Pokemon are able to be put in gyms, Celebi would make a pretty good defender. It's got the well-rounded stats. Grass type isn't the best defensive typing, but it's pretty good. And Psychic type is awesome because you ward off those Machamps. It's got Confusion, which is quite possibly the best fast move to have for a defender. And it has Dazzling Gleam, which is like Tyranitar comes in the fight, oh, gonna Dazzling Gleam on it, teach him a lesson there. Okay, so I've talked kind of around them as attackers. Well, how do they perform in a raid? So I decided to, shape them up against a Machamp raid. This is against a tier 3 counter dynamic punch Machamp raid. And I decided to cut off Lugia. So the max TDO on this is like 27, 28. Lugia is like either 36 or 46, just something that's like just a huge outlier. If you want to fight Machamp, use a Lugia, really. It makes the fight like a dream. So we see here with Celebi, this is using the Confusion Dazzling Gleam moveset because Psychic and Dazzling Gleam, they basically had like the same performance. It does basically as well as a Hurricane Dragonite. If I were to get a Celebi, I probably wouldn't run out to power it up for a Machamp fight or to use it for offense in general. It just doesn't seem to stand out that much for, the rarity of it. When you can get like a Gardevoir and the one day you get a Mewtwo or a Lugia, which is just crazy good for this. And then dialing it down here, right, we see we got Mew. Very poor DPS. This is using the Psychic moveset. So with its stab Psychic even, the best attack it could probably use against Machamp, it's not that great. If Mew is doing this bad against a fight that it should have the advantage in, I don't think that bodes well for it in other areas. There's a certain website that I don't like to talk about, and they have an article out right now that says Mew is the best attacker, and it's the most versatile attacker, and you can use Mew to fight everything, and it's going to be great at everything. Well, you're here with SwagTips right now, and I'm telling you that it's going to be disappointing at everything. In every class, it'll probably be a disappointment. And you're going to notice up here, we got Jirachi hanging out with Metagross, and this kind of makes Jirachi look bad. But it also makes Metagross look bad. And the reason for this is that this is the counter dynamic punch Machamp raid. They're Steel Psychic, so they're going to be taking neutral hits from that. If they're up against the Heavy Slam moveset, then they'd be standing out a lot more. I didn't make a Heavy Slam graph for this, my apologies. But Jirachi is a bit more exciting than the other two mythical Pixie type Pokemon here. Alright, so we got Jirachi here, and this is a Psychic Steel type Pokemon. So exactly like Metagross. Unlike Metagross, it has a 210, 210, 200 stat spread, just like the other two Pokemon I just got done talking about, Mew and Celebi. They're the Pixie type kind of mythical Pokemon, so they have the same stat spread. I wonder if I said that like 5 times by now. And what makes Jirachi super interesting is that its moveset isn't bad. It's actually got a really wicked attack going on here. So it's got Confusion and Charge Beam as its fast moves. Confusion, obviously where the money's at. And then it's got Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, and Doom Desire. And Doom Desire is actually really exciting. Let's just click on it here and I'll give you a glimpse of the OP BS-ness that is Doom Desire. So it's got 80 base power. Okay, that's reasonable. That's not too insane. But it's got a cooldown of 1.7 seconds, which is crazy, right? That gives it a DPS of 47.06, which is pretty crazy. So right now, Precipice Blades and Origin Pulse, they're not in the game. Frenzy Plant is. So Frenzy Plant is right now the only attack that's in the game that is stronger, like under this basic model, compared to Doom Desire, which is of the OP brokenness. I actually used Bioweapon and Double Felix's comprehensive DPS model, so I got a tab here, has that in there. And so Violent Frenzy Plant, which from what I've seen has the best cycle comprehensive DPS in the game, well, that's like 21 to 25.412 basically. Well, Confusion Dazzling Gleam is like 21 to 25.31. So they're basically on par. Confusion Doom Desire, like 1/10 of the time, is going to be better than Violent Frenzy Plant. But it appears that for the other 90% of the time, it's edging it out. If you look at the decimals, a lot of these comparisons are pretty thin. It's like not that big of a deal. So I'd say they're about the same. And, you know, you got Jirachi, and it's got arguably better stats than the Venusaur, so I'm pretty stoked about that. And Steel type is arguably a bit more pervasive than Grass type is, so might be seeing some pretty big things from Jirachi here with the Doom Desire. That was a clip from my livestream SwagTips where I went over the Mythic Pixie-shaped Pokemon Mew, Celebi, and Jirachi. Right now, it's only confirmed that Mew is going to be added to the game with the quest system, but I think it's reasonable to assume that we will get Celebi and Jirachi down the line. I just wanted to debunk some myths that might be floating around about these Pokemon. If you want to keep up with the Swag Man for further updates, then make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. If you got any questions or anything you'd like to know, comment below and I'll be happy to answer them. SwagTips. Got some breaking news here, guys. I guess the Game Master has updated and Mew's moveset has expanded. So it can know Pound, Steel Wing, Charge Beam, Shadow Claw, Volt Switch, Struggle Bug, Frost Breath, Dragon Tail, Infestation, Poison Jab, Rock Smash, Snarl, Cut, and Quick Move 283 as quick moves. For the cinematic or charge moves, it can know Psychic, Ancient Power, Dragon Claw, Psyshock, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Hyper Beam, Solar Beam, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Psychic, Ancient Power, Dragon Claw, Psyshock, Ice Beam, Blizzard. Oh man, the list goes on. Right, so yeah, that'll be kind of interesting. I guess there's some mechanics about Mew that have yet to be seen. I guess we'll see what we're working with when it comes out. Another thing about the Game Master update is Mew has a 100% catch rate, so it appears that if you do find a Mew through the quest system and you are able to catch it, then you're for sure gonna catch it. But yeah, I guess future updates from SwagTips. Let's see what the deep mysteries behind all these moves, what they could be here.